Hello, math class. How you doing today? So today we are going to continue with decimals and estimating, but with products. So your learning target is I can estimate products and multiply decimals, and the key in this is estimating. I'm going to explain how you can do that in the next slide. So let's look at this. We have 64 times 7. Now, without using a calculator, how could we figure out, how could we ballpark, how could we estimate roughly what this product is going to be? So, right down here, oh my gosh, it's be too early in the morning. The writing is awful. Okay, estimate. So, what if we go 60 times 7, right? You know, 60 times 7 is roughly 420, okay? But I can't write today. Now let's figure out what it is actually. It's 64 times 7. Now you can do this any way you want. I do it with the old school algorithm that I learned. So I go 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times 6 is 42. Add 2 is 448. Is 448 close to 420? It absolutely is. So we used our estimate to get a ballpark to know where we're at and then figured out what the actual answer is. So now, check this out. Let's do the same thing. We've got the same problem, except now we've got this decimal point. So it reads different. It's not 64 times 7, it's 6 and 4/10 times 7, right? So what can we do? Well, let's still start with our estimate. Okay? So 6.4 times 7, or 6 and 4/10 times 7, we're going to go 6 times 7, which we know is 42. So we know our answer's going to be around 42. But now let's do this. Let's take away that decimal. Let's act like it's not even there and go 64 times 7. Right? Well, we get the same thing that we got before. 4 times 7 is 28. 7 times 6 is 42. Add 2 is 448. Right? Just like we had in the last problem. The numbers haven't changed. The only thing is there's a decimal point. But now what we need to do is we need to look at our estimate to figure out where does that decimal place go. And our estimate was 42. Well, where in 448 would the decimal point go to be close to 42? It would go right there. So our answer is 44 and 8/10. Let's try another one. 83 times 65. Again, let's start with an estimate. So I'm going to go 80 times 70. I know that 80 times 7, so 8 times 7 is 56. Add the 2 zeros. My estimate's 5,600. Well, let's figure out what it is actually. Now, again, I use the old school method, so I'm going to go 5 times 3 is 15. So it's 40, add 1 is 41. Then I go to the 10th spot, and I go 18. This is 48, add 1 is 49. And I get 5, 9, 3, 5. Is 5,395 close to 5,600? It absolutely is. So we know my estimate worked. Now let's look at this again. So now it's different though, right? It's the same numbers, but there's decimal places in there. So now it reads as 8 and 3/10 times 6 and 5/10. Well, what are we going to do? We're going to estimate. So we're going to go 8 times 7. 8 times 7 is 56. So I know that when I multiply these numbers together, it's going to be around 56 because I proved that in the previous problem. So now let's do this. Let's remove those decimal points and act like they're not even there and multiply the two numbers. So again, we did this last time, so we know what the answer is going to be. It won't change, right? So the answer is 5,395, right? But, so we have to look at 5,395 and go, where does that decimal place go? Well, if my estimate's 56, where do I put my decimal place in this to make it close to 56? Right there. So the answer now becomes 53 and 95 hundredths. Now, there's another way that you can do this that your parents might say is how they solve it, or maybe you've heard this before. If you look at 8 and 3/10 times 6 and 5/10, you can then look at the number of digits behind the decimal point. So in 8 and 3/10, there's one digit. In 6 and 5/10, there's one digit, for a total of 2 digits. So if you look at, so then in your product here, you know that there needs to be 2 digits behind the decimal place. So that's why 53 and 95 hundredths works, because if you've got 53.95 and you know there has to be 2 digits behind the decimal place, there it is. And really what that's doing is you've got tenths, 3/10 times 5/10 equals 15 hundredths. So you know that your decimal place needs to go into the hundredth spot, and that's why you see it. But I like to estimate, and then that helps me figure out where I need to put my decimal. So now it's your turn. Here is your homework. There are 4 problems, 3 of them, and then a bonus question. Here's what I want to see in your work. I first want to see what your estimate is. So I should see an estimate. And then you can solve it the exact number. Okay? And how you solve it, you can use any method you want. Like you saw, I use the traditional method. You can use partial products, and you can verify it with your calculator. But again, first estimate it, because that's going to help you figure out where the decimal point goes. Do not use your calculator. Okay? All right. Let me know if you have any questions.